We're getting barred up and ready to go get these receptacles installed. Today, Corey will install a brand new receptacle. But remember, if this isn't your area of expertise, please hire a professional. Let's get amped for this next video. I'm Danielle, and welcome to De-cor Homes.
Check this out. Does this mean you're gonna shock yourself on my chest? Maybe. Hi there, Corey from De-cor Homes here. Today we're installing a receptacle. Fairly basic to do, but it could be fairly intimidating if you don't know what you're doing because it's electrical. I could burn my house down, right? Or at least that's what you normally hear. So we're at our panel. We've already tested and we already know that this is the breaker that needs to be off. The breaker's off. Let's go test out our wires. Before we touch any wire at all, we always use a circuit tester, okay? This circuit tester, all you have to do is hit the button, and when you hit the button, it will identify if something is live or not. So looking at this wire, it obviously has power. So when I touch it, it should... There we go. The hot is always going to show the electricity going through it. The neutral does not. So you don't actually shock yourself through the neutral, you'd actually shock yourself with the black, the hot. The hot is what's dangerous. So, if you get the point. Now, let's move on towards our project over here. Always use your circuit tester. These things aren't perfect, and you can still get shocked if you're using one of these. Always do your research. Always have a licensed electrician doing your work for you. If you're planning on doing the work yourself, which is fully legal, make sure you pull a permit. That way you're going through all the necessary steps. And should you be missing the steps that you're required to get a job done, at least the inspector will tell you. Now we're back to our receptacle. When we touch these wires, we get a little static electricity when we first touch them, but we realize that there's no power going through. See, even if I touch the white, it would still give that charge, but the neutral doesn't give you any shock. The hot would give you a shock, but it's obviously not on. And you can always test it out on different things. So say if you see a wire up here, so you know this thing's working like a charm. It's safe to say the power inside there is off. Let's get right to it. If you get a good close look, inside the box we have this area up here is where the wires normally come from. On the inside, I think you can see that they're coming in from the bottom. To make more room, I always screw in this top part. It's not being used, but you know what? Let's get her done. Make more space inside these boxes because there's never a lot of room. Now that this is screwed in, power's turned off, so we take this off. Okay, no big deal. We can touch it. Ah! Just kidding. We got my cameraman back. So we unscrew these. There's no power to it. What we're doing is we need to connect. The silver goes to your neutral or your white. Your hot, which is your black, normally connects to the gold. Your hot or the black goes to the gold. The neutral always goes to the silver, okay? And down here is your ground. The ground will always be connected to the back of the box when it comes in, and then you'll always have this extra wire hanging out. What I do is I normally put my ground in first, and then I put my neutral, and then I put my hot. Let's get right down to it. This is how the receptacles normally come. The 4 bolts are just open, but we're only using 2. 4 bolts are open. What you do is you screw those bolts in, because if you have a live wire connected to this, and if this bolt that has no electrical wire going through it, but the current is still going through it, if that hits the side of your box, you get a spark, and it'll likely turn off your breaker. So there we go. We screw in the 2 bottom ones, okay? We put the ground on, so the ground turns clockwise. For us to tighten it clockwise, what we always do is twist it so that the bend goes the same way as your twist. What that's gonna do is it's gonna pull it in and wrap it around as you're tightening it. What I do is I get myself a good pair of needle nose. I am going this way, so I want a slight bend. You just grab it from the very tip of your needle nose and you give it a slight bend, okay? Now I want it so that it wraps around this way. So it's actually upside down. Let's take it and flip it. There we go. Now our bend is the right way. That slight hook on it makes it really easy for us to hook it on. And then as you're screwing it in, it tightens up as we go. Right here, that's where it's almost just at the tip right there, right? So once we spin it around, does this fit? There we go. So I'm pulling on this receptacle so that this hook is nice and tight, because you want a nice tight connection. Don't over tighten, but see that? That's nice and tight. So now we do the neutral. The neutral wraps around this way, so it needs to bend downwards. Slight bend downwards. That almost seems like a little much. Straighten it out, get more of a tip, and then bend really slightly. Look at that, nice and small. Just gets in there. Now that looks like a pretty tight connection there. We'll switch up and grab our screwdriver. Nice and tight. We do a small bend, just like so this is the type of bend you're looking for. Nothing crazy. Something like that hooks easily inside here. If you become an electrician or if you're doing electrical work, you'll soon realize that getting this hooked in can be a little bit of a challenge. So you get a small hook in. Oh, so notice I almost made a mistake. We're supposed to be twisting this way, so technically this should be bent from the bottom. This hook should be actually twisted. Use needle nose pliers. So see this? We'll hook it this way so that when it gets hooked, it'll actually tighten as we go. So there you go. We're hooked in. We take our pliers, we tighten up. See, I'm kind of pulling as we go because I want a nice tight connection. Now, as I'm tightening, you see it'll actually pull in a little bit. It's tightening as I go. Okay, and the last trick is to create like a Z pattern in your wires. So when you're having a hard time getting them in, I push up at the back and I push down at the front, and then it goes in like a Z pattern or a Z pattern. The last thing I like to do right prior to pushing in this receptacle is I take some black electrical tape or any color electrical tape, and what I do is I wrap it all the way around the outside of the box. What this is trying to achieve is that it'll actually cover all of your connections, anything that might be live, anything that might cause you to get shocked. This will all get covered up by your electrical tape, and that way if someone grabs the box with less experience than you accidentally touch the box from the side, you won't get shocked, you know? You'll touch the electrical tape and it'll actually save you a little bit of damage. What I do is I just put it on the side here if you want to get a good view. I just get my electrical tape and I cover this up. I make sure that these bolts are completely out. That way when you're going around, you won't catch your bolts and it'll be a completely clean connection. So here we're going all the way around, nothing is visible. This is going overboard, but this way, everyone's safe. Look at that, nice and clean. Even if someone touches that afterwards, they're not gonna shock themselves. You take your 632s. 632s always use a small Robertson, so you get those in. If they don't go in right away, this is going in tight, right? I'm gonna go counterclockwise until I hear a click. Listen carefully. Oh, there it goes. That click is actually the sound of the thread finally making a clean connection. Now that the thread is making a clean connection, look how easily it goes in. Here's another tip. Once you get them both in a hair, push them in fully. Because there's these little rubber pieces here, okay? The little rubber pieces are actually preventing you from pushing it in hard. What you do is you get them in the thread first. Use the backwards technique that I was explaining. I'm gonna go backwards. There's the click. Then you go in. Screw it in, screw it in. You push it all in. See how far back it is? It's like off the wall. Right now, watch this. When I push in, it gets that lock in there. And then now, your piece is actually holding in a lot easier. Screw it in. Make sure that everything is nice and centered as you're tightening it up. Get this guy, screw it in. So this is the way the receptacle should fit on the drywall. It should actually sit on top of the drywall. A lot of the times the boxes are incorrectly cut, but this should be nice and flush. I can kind of tell that this face is actually tilted this way a hair. What I would just do is push on that side just to create more, like on the left side, now it's a little bit more even. And then when we put our faceplate on, it'll be nice and clean. That's putting up a receptacle. Make sure you have a small hook in your wiring so that when you're hooking it up, it'll feed itself a lot easier. Another note to always remember is that the silver always connects to the white or the neutral, and the gold always connects to the black or the hot wire. Receptacles are fairly basic. On a regular receptacle, it does not matter if you hook it up on the top or the bottom connection. So long as white is hooked up to silver and black is hooked up to gold, you're laughing. The last thing you do is you use a plug tester. And now we're turning on the power for the receptacle inside that furnace room. Never look at it. You turn it on. Do we see light? We're good to go. We make our way back into this room. This should be functioning, but how can you tell? Are we gonna plug it into something? No, that's what our grandparents do. What we do is we use a plug tester. This plug tester is by Commercial Electric. If you look closely at it, you can see if something is correctly wired with the two yellow dots on the side. You can see if it's incorrectly wired with a hot and neutral reverse. It'll show hot and ground reverse. These little lights are actually explaining if it's correctly installed or not. These dots and lights correspond to the red, yellow, yellow, or red, orange, orange, okay? So the two orange is correctly wired. If the two orange light up, then we know we did a good job. One thing that's important to note when looking at these things, sometimes if you're looking at the light slightly off angle, it'll actually be lit up, but the glass is so thick, but you don't see it. What you do, I turn off the light, I plug it in, okay? Nothing's on right now. I plug it in, and then I'm gonna take the camera real quick. You can see one light and another light, and the red is not connected at all. So say if I turned off all the lights, it might be easier to see. But see here, at this angle, it only looks like the front light is lit up. You know, this one is kind of lit up, but this one's kind of lit up too. You know, from a different angle, you can really see. Now that we're correctly hooked up, you can plug it in the top just for good measure. Lights on, we're laughing. Now that we have our receptacle correctly wired, we verified with the plug tester if it's good. It's good. The last plan is to put in a plate cover. This is a De-cor receptacle, which means that it all has this rectangle shape. Make sure you get the correct plate cover. You always screw these in with a flathead. Don't over tighten. When we're putting in the faceplate here, we always want to screw it in to a point where it's just reaching flush with this point. Right now, if we were to pass something over, it actually hits on this little lip here. What we're trying to do is achieve a point where we're nice and screwed in, where this is completely flush. We're getting there, and now we're flush. Say one too many. There you go. The bottom one's a little bit low, so there's still a little bit of a lip there. What I do is I take this guy here, and I just tighten it a little bit more. This is righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So we're tightening it up and we're nice and tight. Now we have a nice flush receptacle, faceplate, everything's nice and clean. You can push that in, we're good to go. And typically when I finish, this is me being a little bit picky, but I always make sure that the hole or the line is actually facing up and down, similar to all the lines on your receptacle itself. Again, you go backwards until you hear a click. That was it. And then nice and quick. One nice thing about Klein screwdrivers, or any quality screwdriver for that matter, is that they have a round edge, which makes it really easy to spin. As you're going, you can actually spin with this side here too, and you can remarkably go quite fast. Almost as fast as if you were using a drill in some cases. Some people you see using an impact. Like an impact is great when you're doing demo, when you're taking stuff off, but like when you're installing stuff, like if you're hearing that and you're installing a receptacle, like you gotta give your head a shake. Now that we've got the faceplate on, we're good to go. We're good to pass inspections, and yeah, we're laughing. If you have any questions, please comment below. There's a list of all items that we use in our description line, and please don't forget to subscribe. Okay, thanks for watching.
That's a wrap. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you subscribe and watch all our other videos. See you next time.